So now that I have my base made and a couple of coils that I started, I'm ready to begin my coil piece. So in our classroom or in the studio, there are some boards. It's just a piece of drywall. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and put that on top. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to move around the studio with my clay. So if I'm working at the table, I then can go ahead and put this pretty easily into my cubby. So what I need to do with my base is, first off, I need to make it the right shape that I want. So I'm just going to make it more oval shape because that's what the clay kind of just started doing. So I'm going to use my fettling knife and I'm going to cut. Now our base is 3/8 of an inch. That's in between a quarter and a half. That way it's thick enough and strong enough to support. So I'm going to cut a little bit more. Now these scraps that I'm pulling off, right away I kind of want to mush them back together because I'm going to use that for my clay. So now that I have my base cut, the next thing I want to do is make sure there's no air pockets. Because this is thicker than we've been working so far, I want to make sure there's no air trapped, even though I did wedge this clay before starting. So I'm going to use my smooth metal rib. And I'm going to press kind of firm, and I might take off some of the clay, but that's okay. I just want to make sure that there's no bubbles or pockets in this slab. And so I did end up removing some of the clay, and that's all right. So now I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. And I'm going to do the same thing to the back side. And I'm putting some pressure on it. So right there I kind of have a gouge. I opened up an air pocket. So that's really important because we don't want your base to explode in the firing process. So now I was able to remove that air pocket. If I wouldn't have checked my slab because it is thicker, then I would have had some problems during firing. Now by doing that, I kind of distorted the shape of my base. So again, I can just come back in with my fettling knife and just trim away some of this excess clay. But so far I have made my base. I checked both sides for air pockets, and luckily that I did because I did remove one. All right, so it's not real smooth. Well, I could come back in with my finger, smooth that out. If you have your rubber rib, you can smooth it out with that. But it really doesn't matter too much what that base is looking like for right now because you'll get to blending the inside. So this time we're using the red clay, and so we need to make sure that we're using the red slip. And I am going to use, instead of my needle tool, I'm going to use the serrated metal rib to attach the coil. So I'm just going to grab that. We're just going to pause for just a moment. So now I have that metal rib that I was looking for, and it's the one with the teeth, so it's called serrated. And I want to make sure that I score. So anytime you attach parts, you rough up that surface. Now the serrated rib is going to work a lot faster than the needle tool. And then I still want to make sure it's really rough, so I can't just go one direction. I got to come back in and rough that up. Now I did that on top of my base. That's really important that it's on top, okay? Because that's where I'm going to put the coil. Do not put it on the outer edge. That is not a safe attachment. So I'm going to take my coil that I have ready, and I'm going to score that. And then I'm going to take my red slip. I'm going to make sure that I put the slip on where I'm attaching and what I'm attaching. So I make you do both, and that's simply because I've learned over the years that sometimes we don't get enough slip, and so then parts fall off. So I've learned just to have high school kids just do both parts, even though some people might say that's redundant. So now I'm going to go ahead and press this coil down, and I want to press it nice and tight. If I don't, I definitely risk getting air pockets in there, and I don't want to trap air between my coil and my base. Now I have too much coil. I could simply just pinch it off, or if you wanted to, you can cut it off as well with your fettling knife. Okay, I'll make sure everything is nice and firm. So there is my first coil. Now I'm not worried about the outside right now. So I'm going to take my wood tool, and I'm going to use a wood tool with a rounded back part so it's not flat. And I'm going to support and I'm going to pull some of that coil into my base. So you can't see too well when I'm doing that side. And if you get some extra slip, just put it back in your cup. With your board, you can just rotate the board instead of trying to pick up your coil pot and maybe deforming it. So that allows me to continue to blend. And so I'm literally pulling that clay down. And then it looks really ugly. So I'm just going to take my finger and I'm just going to rub. Now the red clay is messier. That is for sure. So if you're wearing something light colored, you might want to change your clothes if you can, or your shirt, so that you're not wearing something too light. It can stain white clothes, light grays, light yellows, anything that's really light. So right now, I have my coil attached to my base. So now I'm ready to continue building. So the next coil that I'm going to put on, I already scored part of it, and where I scored, I'm just going to roll it around. Now I didn't score the other part because that's really tricky to do, but it is scored on one side. So now I have a spiral, but it doesn't look very nice, and this side looks much nicer. So the side that doesn't look very nice, I'm going to blend it. You can use your finger. If your finger's not working, you can use your wood tool again. If I don't blend the back side of the spiral, it will crack. I guarantee you. So now I have the spiral on the outside, and I have it blended on that side. And then I'm going to score and slip it, because anytime you attach a part, you want to score and slip that. So if you wanted to use your needle tool for this little piece, you can, because it's a lot less that I'm attaching. Or you could use that serrated metal rib. It's really up to you what works better. But the rib is nice for big areas that you're scoring. So again, I want to put slip on what I'm attaching and where I'm attaching. Now you don't have to let the coil show. That's a choice you have to make. But on the back side here, I need to make sure that I pull some of this clay down into my pot. And I'm just going to clean that up. If I get extra slip, I'm just going to put it back into my slip cup so I can keep using that for the future. So now I've attached one coil and a little spiral. So I have this other coil that I have started, and I'm not going to score it this time, but you could use a little bit of water. So I have a spray bottle that I'm just going to use. It would be better for you guys to use maybe a damp sponge. But this is how I'm going to attach this spiral. So that wet water will kind of act like a slip. Because scoring the spirals is tricky. And I want it to be roughly the same size, so I'm going to cut it off. So it's roughly the same size as my other one. And then I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to decide this is going to be the back. And then you have to blend it. Don't wait to blend. Blend it right away. Because if you wait, your clay may get too stiff, and then you won't be able to blend it nicely. So my back side's blended. My front side has the spiral. And I am going to put this one kind of at a diagonal from the other one. And that's just my choice of placement. It's a good idea to think about what you're going to do. In the demonstration video I had you watch, you saw that she did all kinds of things with clay, with coils. And she did all kinds of interesting coil things. But she put it all in one pot. And so it maybe didn't look the best. So I'm not done attaching. I pressed it on firmly, but now I need to blend that on. And then I'm going to rub that out. Okay. So I like that I have the two spirals here, but I want to fill coils into that part. So then I need to score. So I'm going to score this edge here of my spiral, and I'm going to come all the way over to the other edge of my spiral, and then I'm going to score my coil. Make sure you really rough up that surface. I'm going to attach my, I'll not attach it just yet, I'm going to add slip to it first. This is our glue, so this is really important that you are using the slip because this is what's holding things together. Then I'm going to press it to the spiral, and I'm going to press down. I'm going to go all the way around, and I have some extra coil, so I'm going to cut it off and then press that back down. So now I've added that one on. And then I just need a little bit, so I'm going to see if my piece will fit. And look at that, perfect. So now I need to score where I'm attaching. I had leftover coil, so I already have what I'm attaching. Add my slip to this part because I already have slip on my coil. And then I want to press down nice and firm. So when you're first building, things may not look really beautiful right away. Don't let that stress you out. We have to do refining things. So just like our pinch pots, they didn't necessarily look the greatest at first, but then after we did some smoothing, we used some of the tools, we made them look a whole lot better. So I like to blend once I get my coil on so that I don't forget, because it's a lot harder to get into the inside as I continue to move upward when I'm building. And maybe your pot's going to come way inward. So then it'll be really hard to get tools or your fingers in there. And I'm just using my finger to smooth out the tool marks, but I'm making sure that I support the outside of my wall. I don't want things to fall over. So at this point, I can continue to build. And so then I want to come over to my excess clay and I want to continue rolling some coils. So I'm sitting right now, and it is possible to roll coils while you're sitting. I like to usually stand when I do it, but again, start in the middle, go all the way out to the ends. Start in the middle, go all the way out to the ends. So again, I'm going to use that spiral. So a sponge with water is just fine. And I'm going to roll. If you get some crackles in your coils, don't worry about it right now. Okay, it'll be fine. We're just more concerned about building. So I have my spiral. I need to blend the back side. Make sure that it's not going to crack. So if you can see on the back side where the coil spiraled around, that's going to crack. Okay, so this time I want to put it on this end. It's kind of a cross, kind of a diagonal. I'm going to use my serrated metal rib. I could use my needle tool because it's just a small area. So whatever works for you. Put slip on both parts, very, very important. And I'm going to press it on. Then I want to make sure that I blend on the inside. Take my finger and just kind of clean that up a little bit, get rid of some of that extra slip. So now I have two spirals kind of across from each other. And I kind of like the odd number, so I'm going to go ahead and roll some coils. Now, if you want the coils not to show, you would build with your coils, and where you place your coils is going to change the direction that your piece is going. So right now, I'm just going straight up, and that's what's going to happen to my coil piece. It's just going to go straight up. But if I were to change the placement of my coils, then that would change if it were to go outward. And you don't have to have the coil showing. I just am because that's an option. And some people like that because it's a little bit more interesting. So I'm just going to pinch it off this time because I have too much. Press it on there. Okay. Then I'm going to come around to this side. I want to score. Anytime you attach parts, you need to score and slip. I cannot stress that enough because that's what's keeping your stuff together. So if you don't score and slip, then you have nothing that is keeping your pieces together. I mean, you're blending on the inside, but that blending isn't going to be enough. And my coils don't look beautiful right now. I'm going to use my wood tools later on to kind of come in and make them look a little cleaner. So everywhere they touch, you need a score, add your slip. Press that in there, and then I'm going to pinch a little bit of that extra off. And it's not a good idea to do all your building in one day. The clay will be too soft to support itself, and so you might not get everything finished. That's normal. In fact, that's kind of a good thing because if your clay gets too soft while you're building, and that it does that because of the slip, and you're manipulating it, and you're pushing it around, and this red clay is a little bit on the softer side. So that is going to make sure, or you need to make sure that you are letting it dry a little bit, but don't leave it uncovered. I have to wrap it in a plastic bag. Okay, so my inside looks kind of ugly from my tool marks. So maybe now I can get my metal rib inside and it can blend. And maybe that's too tricky for me. Maybe my finger is still easier. So that's kind of cleaning it up. Or you could use the sides of one of your wood tools. Or you can simply use your finger. I kind of like the finger the best because it doesn't leave any tool marks. But I want to make sure everything's blended. If I can see where I put a coil or where I put a spiral, I'm going to get a crack there, and you have a very good likelihood of that area falling off. Okay, so I don't really want to add any more spirals, but I want to get my coils even to the top so I can show you how you can move your clay around a little bit. And I have some extra coil on the other side that you can't see very well, and I can use those too. So sometimes I like to roll a few coils. Remember, off with those fingertips, off with the palm. About the thickness of your pinky. That's a good thickness. So I want to try to get this area so it's a little bit more even. Then I'm going to take my other scrap that I had. I'm going to put this in here, pinch that off, add that to my clay. Push that in there, take that off. All right, so now I need to attach them. Just setting them there won't attach them. I need to make sure that I'm scoring and slipping them. And if things start to get, a little bit of red clay on it, just peel that off. So I'm scoring, score my coils, slip on the pot, slip on the coil. Score my coil, slip, slip on the coil. I just can't stress that enough. It's just really, really important that you do that. And then I need to score my last one. Slip, slip. And get that into place. Okay, so now I have that into place, and I'm going to hold off on blending the inside for just a moment because I want to make a coil that's going to go over everything. So I need to make the longest coil. Now, if I don't make one that quite fits, that's okay. I can use 2 pieces of coils. You just saw me break up a coil and use it in multiple spots. My coil piece right now is not beautiful. This does not look awesome. But I'm just beginning. So you have to remind yourself you're just beginning. You're not finished with it. It's not going to look great at first. And even mine doesn't look great at first. So I'm going to score everything because I want this coil to wrap over my spirals. And hopefully you got some really good ideas in that video that I had you watch. She did all kinds of crazy things with her coils. You can keep it simple. I just have 3 spirals in mine right now. And then I'm going to have some areas that are going to be probably smooth, I would say. So you can also mix it up where it's smooth. So I want to make sure I really push that on because I'm going over top of that. I'm going to come over, I really want to push it in. And then I'm just a tiny bit short. So I'm just going to take another little chunk of a coil that I made earlier. I'm just going to cut a little piece off, score, put slip on it, and put it into place. And I can rub it together so it looks like it was the same coil. Okay, so now that I've had 2 coils put on, it's going to be a little bit easier for me to blend. And so I want to make sure that I don't go any further before I blend. And so I want to blend into my spiral. And then I have these 2 layers of coil here. So sometimes pulling up works, sometimes pulling down works, sometimes pulling at an angle to blend works. You really just kind of have to play with how it works for you. This clay is pretty soft, so there should be no reason why you can't blend the inside. If it were drier, I could see how it would be harder. So I'm kind of pulling it up. And then going around. Okay. So now that it's a little bit bigger, I'm going to try to come back in with my metal rib. So that's going to clean up a little bit more. And you're blending that clay, and that thins out your coils a little bit, which is why it's so important that you have the proper thickness. Too thick can cause explosions. Too thin, your pot's going to be very, very unstable and you're not going to be able to blend well. The right thickness, you're going to have enough clay to blend and still have a nice strong piece. But it's pretty floppy. You know, like it moves pretty easy. And that's simply because the clay is soft. So now I need to decide what I want to do. I still have this much clay and this piece over here. I need to use it all. So you can't be like, oh, I'm happy with that, I'm done. No, you need to use all 3 pounds. But I do want to show you that if I set this coil on the outer edge, my piece is going to start to go outward. And if I set it on the inner edge, my piece is going to start to come inward. So I don't really want to do that with this particular piece, but you can. You don't have to let the coil show. So I know I have a spiral here, a spiral here, a spiral here. So I think I am going to do some little balls of clay. That counts as the start of a coil, and it's just going to be a real small area where I'm attaching it. So I'm going to use the needle tool to do that. And I'm actually going to put one on the other side. And again, I'm using my needle tool just because it's a smaller piece. And then I am going to put another one On the other side over here, so I'm going to score, score, slip, slip, attach. That's a really, really important thing when you're working with clay. It's just getting that scoring and slipping down and making sure that you're attaching things properly. Now, the little balls that I'm adding are not humongous. If they're really huge, I risk air pockets. I risk explosions. And so I don't want to make anything too thick. Our guide is really an inch. Anything thicker than an inch is most likely to explode. Now, there's always exceptions I've learned over the years. I'll have some students make some stuff and I'm like, I have no idea why that didn't explode. And so they kind of lucked out. But I don't want you guys to risk that. So I'm going to attach this next hunk of clay. And you don't have to let the coils show. You could blend them all out. If you're going to blend them out, though, don't do it when you first start attaching, okay? The clay's just gonna be too soft. So I would need to let it set for a day or so. Okay, so I put these balls of clay on. It's pretty hard to smooth the balls of clay right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and roll another coil that's gonna go all the way around. So I start by squeezing my clay. And working with the red clay is a little bit messier. You're going to have more table area that's messy. So if you are in the studio, you'll probably need to use a wet sponge your wet sponge at the end of class and just try to wipe out. It's going to leave a residue, so don't stress about that. I already know that. The canvas always gets stained with red. It's not a big deal. So I got to score the top because I'm going to have that coil go over everything again. And then I'm going to put slip on. But you will need to use that sponge to wipe your table area. If you're working at home, if you can put your piece on a paper towel or something so that you can at least slide it around your table area and use your drywall board with canvas to roll your clay on, that's going to be the best for you guys. So then I want to push into that corner there. And my coils have some crackles in them. They're not really all that great looking right now, but that's not my concern. My concern is simply construction. And then I will do the refining after it's constructed. So I need just a little bit more coil to finish off going all the way around. So I roll that out, score it, slip. A little bit extra, pinch that off. And then if I want it to look like one coil, I just have to blend that coil together where I ran out. So that way it doesn't look like I started and stopped. So now I have those balls and then I have that coil on. So now is a good time for me to come in and blend that inside. I'm always supporting. That way I don't knock my clay off. And since it's on the board, it's easy for me to rotate instead of trying to pick it up. And if you're building and you get fairly far, but it just feels so soft, stop. Give it a break. Because when it's really, really soft, it's super hard to keep its form. So I want to use my metal rib again. And I'm supporting the outside. When I come in, I'm just going to blend. And then if I have some tool marks, I can use my fingers. So you can see the round dots that I put in, the spiral, and then the look of the coil. You can see the two dots I put in, the spiral, look of the coil. You can see the two dots. Sorry, they're over here. And then the spiral. But I still have this much clay, so I need to keep building. So I'm going to go ahead and make some more spirals. Usually the coil pieces takes us several days to construct and then several more days to clean it up. So my goal, and I'm working really fast. Like I'm not really, I don't know, I could be making better coils than I am. I just kind of want to get through the demonstration bit because you guys are going to be watching this at home and then be ready to come into the studio and start. And then if you get to a point with your coil piece where you can't really move forward, like it's way too soft, but you still have glazing to do, then you can divide your time in the studio into doing some glazing. So maybe you are already finished your glazing and all you're doing is working on your coil piece. Well, then you could be making like additional spirals or something. And I already changed my mind. I said I was going to put a spiral on. I'm going to put one more round coil around the top of it. Make sure I dip down in. Go round and round. And then I'm going to pinch that off. I'm going to blend. So it's a lot of repeating the same thing over and over again. And like I said before, if you want the coils to not go straight up and down, but since I'm using sort of this oval shape as my base, so that it's kind of oval, and I have some things happening with my coils, nothing too terribly exciting, but I do have some spirals showing. I don't think that moving my coil placement in and out is going to work for this piece, but where you place the coil is going to affect. So I just kind of keep putting it on top, just going to go straight up and down. If you put it outward on the outer edge, your clay is going to move outward. So if I wanted to make this more round, I could move it outward. And then if you notice, I keep blending and then cleaning it up. I don't wait. If I wait, I'm not going to be able to get my hands in there very well or tools. So I put something on, I blend, clean it up. Sometimes I wait for one or two coils, but that's really not a lot of waiting. Okay, so here I'm going to use this clay. I'm going to roll it into a spiral. I'm going to blend one side. So I'm blending. And then I'm going to attach it. There you go. I'm going to attach it in this dip. So because it's just a small area, I'm going to use my needle tool again. But if you noticed, I used that serrated rib when I'm doing a large chunk. I'm not blending just yet, but I am definitely getting it to sit there and trying to get it into my pot a little bit more. Okay, so there's that. So this is my highest point here. So I think I'm going to put another spiral over here. And I can't stress to you enough, doesn't look beautiful. It's not gorgeous. That's what happens when you first start. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, my coil pot's so ugly. It might be at first. I don't know. You know, it takes a while to get things to look really nice. So I'm blending again the back side of that coil. I'm not using a tool this time, I'm just using my finger. So you can use whatever works best for you. So if you tried the tool and you're like, ugh, it's not working, then just use your finger. But you need to make sure the back is blended, otherwise uh, it's gonna crack. So I'm gonna put that there. I'm gonna use my needle tool, small area to attach, slip, blend a little bit from the back side just so it stays. And so now I think I'm going to put one more coil over here because there's nothing really going on other than just straight up and down coils. And still have some clay left, running out, but getting close. So this still isn't a very gigantic piece by any means, and it's 3 pounds of clay. We start with 3 pounds so I don't get like the teeniest, tiniest pieces from you guys. I have actually had students just make a base and attach a coil, one coil. That doesn't really show me enough, okay? So I'm gonna blend. I need you to do something to it. So whether it's letting the coils show and doing some interesting things with the coils, whether it's blending the coils out and making the form move in and out or go different ways, it just needs to do something. It can't just be straight up and down. So I want you to think about what can you make. Maybe you need to draw out a couple ideas. Just kind of smearing that in the back. Okay, so now I have these low areas. So I'm going to fill in again. So I've got a coil I'm going to put there, and then I'm going to put another one on top of it. So I'm going to attach 2 coils there. I'm just going to use my needle tool. You can use that serrated rib. Now, I don't recommend you build as fast as I've been building today. I think it's, you know, with our class time, the way it's set up, that's going to help you with the moisture so that you're not building too much too fast and then you have a day where you're not at school. And so that will let your clay kind of set up. But from day to day, we need to put your extra clay into a bag. So you can use the bag from the pinch pot clay if you need to. So there I filled that area in. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill this low spot over here in. Now, if you're in the studio and you use all 3 pounds, but you need more clay in order for you to finish what you're making, we can get you more clay. If you are at home online only and you decide, oh my goodness, this is not enough clay for me to make what I want to make, you have to get a hold of me and figure out how to get more materials. But you can have more than the 3 pounds. You just have to use the 3 pounds. That is a requirement. And that's because I don't want coil pieces that just go up and down. So I've been scoring. I'm going to adjust my camera just a little bit so that you can see a little bit more of the finishing off part. The reason why we make a coil piece is because pinch pots are probably one of the oldest ways of working with clay. You don't really need tools, even though we use them. But coil pots probably are about the same time as well. It was a way for people to make objects that could hold food and water, and they were able to use them maybe in cooking. and for decorative purposes. So historically, we've been working kind of from the beginning with the technique. So you can see I haven't blended any of that in yet. So I need to make sure that I do that. And then I'm going to come back over to my last side here and hopefully fill that in. So I'm going to roll my coil. Now I could have made this a lot more exciting. So I don't want yours to look like mine necessarily. I want yours to look like how it should look for you. And then today I'm just building. Okay, so I will show you how to do the finishing things in another video. But today I just wanted to get it built. And I've been moving pretty fast. So it's okay for you not to move this fast. And working on rolling coils is going to take you a little bit of time. And let's be honest, my coils haven't been perfect either, but they still have allowed me to build. So scoring and slipping is going to be your best friend to make sure that things stay together. And I could use the serrated rib. I just kind of switched over to my needle tool. And it doesn't look good. It won't look good for a minute, but it'll be together. That's the only thing that I'm worried about right now. If you have questions while you're building, make sure that you ask. I know that you're pretty independent because we have the studio after you've already watched the instruction. So this is truly all the clay I have left out of my 3 pounds. That is acceptable. It is just a very small hunk of clay. And I might need it for something, maybe I decide in the end. So before I can call this good for today, I need to blend all those areas I attached. So I'm using my wood tool, supporting the outside, rotating it around so I can get the other side. I like to pull up. Sometimes I'll pull down. Sometimes I'll go at an angle. So you have to figure out what's going to work for you. So there I kind of have to pull down a little bit. Wasn't going up very easy. My pot's pretty dang soft because I built so fast. So I might need to give it a little shape. A little shaping there. And then I want to clean up that inside. I don't want to wait to get rid of those tool marks. If you wait, you won't be able to get rid of them. It'll be really hard to do because your clay will be set up more. And I've been pushing outward a little bit even though I'm supporting. And so that's kind of rounding my pot just a little. And I'm okay with that. If I wasn't okay with that, I could kind of work on pushing it more the shape that I wanted. But it kind of started oval, and it's still kind of an oval shape. So right now, my piece is constructed, but it is ugly. It does not look beautiful because I will need to show you how to clean up the area. But it's too soft. It's really mushy. So I can't really do any of that cleaning up work for a while. Now, I'm not going to leave this uncovered. I do have to put it in a plastic bag. That's really, really important that you get it covered. Otherwise, when you come back to work to it the next day, it'll be too difficult. And that's why it's also really important that you score and slip, because if you work on it one day and you only get a little bit done, and then you come back and work on it the next day, you really need a strong attachment between day to day. So that clay right now is wet for me, but you might come back to it when your clay is leather hard. So when you attach soft clay to leather hard clay, it's really, really important that you score and slip. So that's coil building part 1, and I'll show you the smoothing techniques for the rest of the piece.